Harry didn't just leave the royal family, he left the whole comfort system behind, and that's exactly why people can't stop comparing him to William. Because let's call it what it is. Harry feels like the risk taker, William feels like the protected brand. Harry took the hit, full stop. He stepped out of royal life, walked straight into public backlash, and still kept talking about things most royals would never touch: mental health, media pressure, family fractures, all of it out in the open. No filter, no royal polish, just honesty, sometimes messy but real. William, he's often packaged very differently. Carefully selected interviews, soft focus headlines, magazine covers that look like they were ironed twice before being approved. Every appearance feels like it's been run through a whole communications team before it ever reaches the public. So it starts to feel like this. One brother stepped outside the palace system and took the punches head on. The other stayed inside the system, and the system made sure he never really takes the same kind of hits. That's where the street-level frustration comes in, because people watching from the outside aren't blind. They see how Harry gets dragged through the mud for everything, while William is often framed as the steady, flawless future king, no matter how the media cycles shift. One gets raw scrutiny, the other gets polished protection. And Harry, he flipped the script completely after what happened to Princess Diana. He didn't just move on, he pushed back, hard. He challenged the press. He called out the machine that fed on his mother's life. He refused to stay quiet about it. That's not small. That's a man saying, "I'm not letting history repeat itself on my watch." That hits people differently because regular folks understand that kind of loyalty. Standing up for your mother, standing up for your family, even when it costs you everything. William's path feels more institution first, stability first, image first, and that's where critics say he becomes less of a disruptor and more of a protected brand inside the royal ecosystem. Meanwhile, Harry feels like the one who broke out of the script entirely, and that's why the contrast sticks. Harry feels like movement, change, risk, emotion. William feels like structure, control, preservation, PR safety. Now, here's the truth most people are quietly thinking but don't always say out loud. Harry feels like he chose truth over comfort, while William feels like he chose comfort over disruption. Harry didn't just step out of the palace, he built a whole new identity outside it, and that's the part people keep underestimating. Because once he left, he didn't disappear, he didn't fade into silence, he didn't sit around waiting for royal approval like a background character. Nah, Harry went global. Interviews, documentaries, public projects, conversations about mental health, trauma, press pressure, military life, fatherhood, real topics, not just ribbon cutting and smiling for cameras. And with Meghan beside him, the whole thing became even more visible on an international level. Love them or criticize them, you cannot say they stayed invisible. They stayed in the conversation, loudly. And that's the shift. Harry basically turned himself into a global voice outside the palace script. He became someone people argue about, relate to, debate, and follow across different platforms. That alone changes the game, because now he's not just a royal son anymore. He's a public figure operating on his own terms. And people notice that because it feels different from the usual royal pattern. Now compare that to William. William is still largely framed inside the traditional royal setup, the steady future king, the continuity guy, the keep everything stable and don't rock the boat role. Most of his public image still comes through carefully managed appearances, official engagements, and media-friendly storytelling that fits the monarchy's long-standing brand. It's not chaotic, it's controlled, very controlled. And that's where the contrast hits. Harry feels like he stepped out of the palace and started building something with his own hands. William feels like he stayed inside the palace blueprint, working within the system that already existed. So when people talk about relevance in today's world, this is where opinions split. Harry stays visible because he creates new conversations. He jumps into modern media spaces. He speaks in a way that feels unfiltered, sometimes risky but alive. That makes people react. William stays visible through tradition, structure, and institutional weight. His relevance is tied more to the crown itself than to personal reinvention. And regular people pick up on that difference fast, because in everyday life, people understand reinvention. People know what it means to leave a system, rebuild yourself, and still keep going even when people are watching and judging every move. That's why Harry's story hits differently for some audiences. It feels like someone rewriting their identity in real time, not just inheriting one. Meanwhile, William's path feels more like maintaining an existing legacy, keeping the machine steady, making sure nothing breaks. So one brother feels like he's building something new in public view. The other feels like he's preserving something old behind strong walls. And that contrast, that's what keeps the conversation alive. Let's keep it real. Harry and William don't even feel like they're playing the same game anymore. Harry connects emotionally. William sounds like he's reading from a royal script that's been laminated and approved by 3 committees and a ghost from Buckingham Palace. And people notice that instantly. Harry talks and it feels like a person, not a product. He'll say things that are raw, sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes too honest for the polished royal world. But that's exactly why people lean in. You don't feel like you're watching a performance. You feel like you're hearing a human being actually think out loud. William, on the other hand, a lot of his public moments come across like they've been rehearsed in a room with no air and too many advisors. Smile here, pause here, add a warm sentence about family. Don't go off script, don't drift, don't say anything that might create noise. And it shows. So one feels like you're talking to a real person at a kitchen table. The other feels like you're watching a carefully edited press statement with a heartbeat. That's where the frustration kicks in for a lot of people, because regular folks don't live like that. Nobody in real life gets to rehearse every sentence before they speak. Life is messy, conversations are messy, emotions slip out. That's normal. Harry leans into that messiness. He doesn't hide it. William feels like he's been trained to never let the mask slip. And yeah, that makes him look stable on paper, but it also makes him feel distant, like there's always a layer between him and the public. Harry breaks that layer constantly, and in the age of social media, that difference is everything. Because audiences don't just listen anymore, they read between the lines in real time. And right now, Harry's lines feel human, William's feel managed. The media treatment of Harry and Meghan versus William and Kate is starting to look wildly uneven, and people aren't ignoring it anymore. Harry and Meghan blink and it's front-page chaos. Every move gets zoomed in on, picked apart, turned into a full-blown drama cycle. One photo, one interview, one comment. Suddenly it's treated like breaking global news. Meanwhile, William and Kate can release a soft-focus family moment or a polished magazine cover, and it's all perfect future monarchy and beautiful family unity. Same world, different rules. What people are noticing is simple. 2 media lanes running at the same time. One is maximum scrutiny for Harry and Meghan, where everything gets questioned and criticized. The other is protection mode for William and Kate, where everything is framed as stability, warmth, and perfection. And let's be honest, palace-friendly media plays into that. William sits closer to the future king role, so his image gets polished and protected. Harry and Meghan are outside that shield, so they take the full force of public and media pressure. Harry and Meghan built their voice outside the system, direct, unfiltered, no royal safety net. That brings more criticism but also more authenticity. William and Kate stay inside the traditional structure, where image control is part of the job, so everything is carefully managed and softened. That's why the contrast feels so obvious now. One side gets questioned for everything, the other gets praised for doing the bare minimum. And people aren't blind to it anymore. They're comparing headlines in real time, and the difference is hard to unsee. At this point, Harry isn't just part of the royal story anymore. He is the conversation. Love him or hate him, the man triggers reactions everywhere. People debate him, defend him, criticize him, quote him, remix him. He moves like a cultural signal that keeps popping up no matter how many times you try to mute it. That's not normal royal energy anymore. That's global influence outside the palace walls. Harry broke out the royal box and started operating in the open world. No crown shield, no silent rules, just his own voice, his own choices, his own mess, and his own wins. And because of that, he doesn't need the institution to stay relevant. He already outgrew it in the public conversation. William, on the other hand, still feels tightly tied to the system that surrounds him. The image, the structure, the tradition, the PR machinery, all of it plays a role in keeping his public glow steady. Without that full royal setup pushing the narrative, he doesn't really exist in the same loud global way Harry does. And that's the split people keep noticing. Harry changed the direction of the story. He stepped outside and started writing his own chapters. William is still inside the book, protected by the publisher, keeping the original format intact. One brother became a cultural force people argue about in real time. The other is still being carried by the institution that defines him. And whether people admit it or not, that difference is exactly why Harry dominates conversations far beyond royal circles, while William's image still depends heavily on the system holding everything together. Thank you all for watching. I am your host, Miles. Catch you in the next episode. Goodbye.